The following program is paid for by its sponsors, who are solely responsible for its content. Views expressed are not necessarily the views of WMAL.
This is the All-American Book Club on Newstalk 105.9 WMAL. Now, here's your host, Eden Gordon-Hill.
Good morning to the All-American Book Club, my Washington, D.C., my shining city on a hill. I am honored to bring over to the show Dr. Walid Phares. And let me just tell you a little bit about him. I know that we've covered so many topics here at the All-American Book Club, but he has advised presidential candidates. He advised my previous boss, Donald Trump. He has advised members of Congress, European Parliament for more than 15 years. And he's published over 15 books, including this one on Iran. And he is an author, he's a professor, he's a father. But the reason why we brought him to the show is what has happened in this past week overseas, foreign policy or national security, and what has happened to Israel. Their 9/11, if you will, affected me personally because I am a military veteran spouse. And I lived through 9/11 serving on Capitol Hill. And so we're going to talk to Dr. Phares this morning about his book and the impact of 9/11 and what has happened to Israel at this time. Dr. Phares, welcome to the All-American Book Club.
Thank you, Eden, for inviting me. It's a pleasure, and I understand fully how you're coming from in terms of feeling, what you felt on 9/11, feeling it again, which is very difficult when Hamas attacked Israel. So I'm ready and happy to engage in a discussion.
So your book, Iran, share a little. I know it came out in 2022, and what were you seeing last year at this time that were warning signs to what happened this past week from the national security standpoint of the United States?
Well, actually, this last book was the last warning, and it was published in December. It was written, obviously, for over 2 years. Right. And the goal of the book was that pay attention to the Iran regime strategies, how they are engaging in the Middle East, how they are actually getting the money from the Iran deal, which we'll talk about. Now we're talking about $6 billion, but that's only a slice of the $150 billion of the mother deal, which was signed in 2015 by the Obama administration. And from that money, they trained, they funded, they supported all these militias. Hezbollah is one, Hashd in Iraq is one, and the lethal one, obviously in Gaza is Hamas. And Hamas only used those long-term resources to do their attacks. But let me go back a little bit.
Yes, please.
I was born and raised in Beirut. See from my accent.
Every Monday, Rich Eisen and Chris Brockman react to what's happening in the world of football on Overreaction Monday.
The AFC North. Mm-hmm. Not all four teams going to make the playoffs.
More likely than not.
More likely than not, right? Okay. And I know they've been the king of this jungle for the last few seasons. The Cincinnati Bengals, Rich, are going to miss the playoffs this year.
This is an overreaction. Bengals are not only making the playoffs, they're winning this division. Oh, again, for a third straight year.
Overreaction Monday, the podcast. Wherever you listen.
I came to the United States in 1990, at the end of 1990. Why did I come? Not because pursue an economic or job or something like that, because I saw terrorism, jihadi terrorism, Iranian-based terrorism, Hezbollah, Syria's President Hafez al-Assad at the time, invading countries around them, attacking the United States in Beirut. I was there when that first major attack, 1983, destroying the Christian Yazidi minorities and others. So I felt that I had the mission as an academic. I was already a professor and a lawyer. I had the mission to come to the strongest and most freer country in the world that would be able to stop the expansion of that axis of Iran, Syria's regime, Hezbollah, and the rest. And that's how and why I immediately after the end of the war in Lebanon, October 13, 1990, I decided to emigrate. I'm a very special type of immigrant. Actually, I lost everything I had, my house, my business, my law office, cars, everything. And I couldn't see anymore my parents for 3 decades, and they passed away just for the fact or the goal of coming to the United States and bringing awareness about that threat which hit the United States. So why I am like you frustrated, I have lived 30 years of frustration, because during the 90s, I was warning. That was mostly the Clinton administration, but also a piece of the previous Bush administration. They are coming, they're going to hit. I would tell them, these are our sources. I understand the language. I understand how they function strategically. Nothing was happening. And one of the reasons why that was not happening, because jihadists or Islamists, if you want, who are the radicals, have funded lobbies in the United States. Iran lobby, Muslim Brotherhood lobbies, and those lobbies have started in the classroom. They have started to disinform and misinform and more generations of Americans who are studying Middle Eastern studies, international relations, and so on and so forth. And the question was, and I saw it because I was teaching, I was a professor for 12, 14 years in America before I moved to the public information realm. And I saw how these individuals, these good individuals, but they have been disinformed, moved in life. You know, they graduated. Where did they go? To newsroom, Washington Post, New York Times, many others, to radio, to newsrooms in TV, and of course to the courtroom, judges, lawyers, so on, and then to the war room as advisors of our defense, our national security, our intelligence. That caused a disorientation among those in the bureaucracies that were supposed to detect the infiltration, detect the penetration, and inform their leaders, inform the American public. So when 9/11 hit us, right, it was a shock because I felt I did everything I could. I came from where they originated. I saw the beast where it was born. And then I informed the American public, my adopted nation and country, and yet they were not able to detect them. And then we had that horror that you and I have lived, that is 9/11. Now, Israel is living similar moments right now. But Israel, unfortunately, and some of our Arab allies have been strategically abandoned by two administrations. The Obama administration, which since 2009 till they left in 2017, early 17, have engaged this time not in ignoring the problem, in actually increasing the problem. So in 2009, when there was a revolt by Iranian public, by the movement, Green Movement, instead of saying, I am with the Iranian free people to remove that jihadi threat against the United States, he said, we're not meddling. It's not us. We don't want to be seen as part of this. And what did they do instead? He instructed his team and task forces to engage with the Ayatollahs. And at the end of that engagement, what did he get us? He got us an Iran deal. And the Iran deal, at the end of the day, after I studied it, and that's really part of the first chapters in this book, is a transaction. And that's very dangerous, meaning it was not done based on national security consideration, national safety consideration, alliance with our friends anywhere. It was based on us sending them $150 billion. Now, here's the deal. That regime said, I'm going to take that money, and I will do whatever is in my interest. So what did they do? They spend it on funding militias. So now when we talk about Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis in southern in Yemen and elsewhere in Iraq, who funded them? Our money, or the money that it's not our money, it's Iran's money, but it's not the regime's money. It's the people's money. So instead of us transferring that money to a resistance, to an opposition, to NGOs who represent the Iranian people rising against the regime of terror, we sent it to the regime of terror. So that's why when today in the debate, it's been 1 week now, they're talking about, oh no, the Biden administration did not, send them money, that they haven't had the chance to spend it. Guys, this is not the money that they spent from. They spent from the $150 billion, and that's an addition. So to be like clear on the matter,
sure.
Multiple books, and those books were all about warning to the American public, to the government. I testified so many times, briefed so many members of Congress. I have been on Fox News as their senior analyst on foreign policy and terrorism. And then, of course, now I'm serving at Newsmax. Yes. I have 4 years of work at even MSNBC, imagine, with 2003. So I have done my job. I have published many books. This is the last book now at this point in time. And this book predicted what the events were in Gaza and in Israel. And it predicted also what events can happen between Hezbollah and southern Lebanon and Israel.
Well, let me ask you that. What do you think could happen in the next couple months with what we're seeing happen? I was sitting there with my friends who were military spouses on Saturday of last week, and I was getting messages from friends on Capitol Hill. They were getting messages from their husbands who some are deployed, some are getting ready to deploy, and some are being called back up. So from that standpoint, us looking around and saying, okay, what's next for our nation and its national security, knowing that this is Obama 2.0 administration, and knowing that the current person in chief there is having barbecues instead of addressing the situation. 72 hours later, it took forever to get a response out of what is actually happening. And then my final thought to that, before you answer your question, is I look around and seeing all of these protests happening now in our United States cities. So from a military spouse and a veteran spouse perspective, are we protecting our kids? Are we safe? How are we, what's ahead that you can speak to in the next couple months?
Eden, I wish the major problem of this administration is that the president, who sometimes we feel is not seeing clearly, but that is our president. I wish his problem only was that he is not there, that he was having fun in a bar with a barbecue. I wish that was the problem. The problem is much bigger.
Right.
His teams, and we just learned huge information 10 days ago, has been penetrated or infiltrated or influenced by the Iranian regime. So we have people in our agencies and bureaucracies with the highest level of security clearances. This is not a secret matter. It's all over the place, who have been collaborating with the Iran regime. I mean, this has never been even in the history of the United States. Never had those cases. So these are advisors and these are experts, quote unquote, who have been advising the high-ranking officials, the decision makers about Iran. So what do you think their advice was? Mm-hmm. Do not engage Iran, do not contain Iran. This is really it's a liberation movement. So they have been fooling the administration and the media and more, so that we have been so late in containing Iran. That's where the gap comes from. I'll give you a few quick examples. Please. Number one, that's the closest to us. And I understand most Americans would understand that as a national safety over foreign policy issues. I'm glad to explain foreign policy issues. Our southern border.
Yes.
Every American understand when I open my mouth and say our southern border. It's the largest halt that was performed against the United States since its inception. Even the Civil War, they had no threat against borders, the factions fighting. But we have been witnessing the penetration, the thrust into that border by organized groups, including NGOs, most likely funded directly or indirectly by the money of the Iran deal. Some say Soros, but Soros is part of this whole thing. And my concern, the concern of many people, I'm not the only one, is that foreign enemy powers or hostile powers have been using this blitz through our border. I mean, we don't have borders, using it to infiltrate radical elements, including jihadists, including agents, operational agents by Hezbollah, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, extremists, or Al-Qaeda. So just do your math. I was to get the information from current agencies. Of course, they were not going to give us the information because the directions at the level of policymakers, they don't want to talk about it. And I'm not the only one. The entire Congress is trying to get information. They're not getting that information. But here's my fear, that for all these years, at least the last 3 years, I know it's much older than that, but at least the last 3 years, the gates are where and are still open.
Right.
So many hundreds, maybe thousands. People are talking about 5 million people. I'll do the best math again. If 0.1% of the 5 million people are jihadists, and they are, and I think there are more, then we have a threat inside the country.
Yes.
And what happened to Israel, with all the attention and the mobilization that Israel has, way more than us, look what happened to them. 1,000 people killed, babies killed, women abducted into Israel, and elderly. I am really concerned that this could have a repeat here. And this will follow a trigger in Tehran or the Taliban or elsewhere, and we will be in deep, deep trouble. So that's only one example of how our national security will be threatened if we don't pay attention. Plus, what I've just said now, that these powers, jihadi powers, are funding organizations that are spreading throughout the Middle East and now attacking Israel. They have been attacking us in Iraq and elsewhere. So we need to have a serious conversation. I'm glad I published my book, which has the actual summary of all that stuff at this time of our history.
Where for those who are tuning in here at the All-American Book Club, I want to let you guys know we have an amazing guest here with us, Dr. Walid Phares, and he's talking about his book, Iran. Where can we pick up this book for those who are tuning in?
At this point in time, it's really Amazon.
Okay.
All the bookstores, those who have the courage to carry it, because I was even told that the jihadi and Iranian lobbies have been calling bookstores to stop displaying this book. This is serious. I sent my own students, one in Florida and one in New Jersey. They asked for the book. They said, yeah, the book is here, but we're not going to display it for too long. They are systematic. They are everywhere. But Amazon.com, you can also get information from Walid Phares, the way it should be spelled. And I have also a way to get them a signed copy if they are interested. But get that book. It's very important.
Well, what I'll be doing for the All-American Book Club audience is posting about this on the Twitter account, All-American Book, and we'll be talking about how they can get your book, and would love to put you in touch with my amazing audience, because they are all about getting books and signed copies and really supporting this show. So I am grateful to what you are doing for our national security. One final question in the minute that we have left here at the All-American Book Club. You have been doing this for more than 15 years. And you have seen so many different administrations and the transition aspect of what is ahead. As we head into a presidential year next year, what are your initial thoughts for that next president, hopefully a next Republican president, that you can say, President X, this is what we need to do to reestablish our national security?
Whomever Republican or non-radical president.
Yes.
Meaning even if independent or even if Democrat, but a presidency that would be led with the inspiration of national security, national safety agenda, should be prepared early on, very early on, should select the best trusted national security experts. You don't do this overnight. Once you hit the transition, it's too late. Because once you are a president and go to the White House and the administration settles everywhere, this is where the bad guys are going to be forming lobbies to distract you, to delay you. We had an example of what happened in last presidency, right?
Exactly.
Working on so many distractions of the presidency that we missed many boats. I mean, we did, the last presidency did very well, Abraham Accords, destroying ISIS, but we could have gone way beyond that. And this administration, unfortunately, reversed a lot of these projects. So on arrival, on departure, you need to have everything installed. All these files should be prepared. And also, that presidency, the next one, should have joint plans with their allies in Congress. Otherwise, there will be chaos. So what we're doing right now, before we have a new president, is briefing members of Congress. So your audience should be very, very active in reaching out to their members of Congress, Senate and the House, in explaining to them what they hear, in summarizing the books. I was now in a briefing in Congress, and they love that. They love when the constituents will talk to them about something of substance. Then you'll see those members going to the floor or going to Congress and then pushing. And when a new Republican, hopefully, president will come, in this case, he should be supported by Congress, by the public, and be able to perform.
Dr. Walid Phares, what an honor to know you and to have you here at the All-American Book Club, WMAL. Many blessings to you and your family. I look forward to having you back as we continue to watch things that are happening over in the Middle East and Israel. And we are just grateful for your service to this nation and what you have done for our many candidates, our many members of Congress, and for just your powerful writing. We thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful for you for inviting me, and I greet everybody who's listening to you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Every Monday, Rich Eisen and Chris Brockman react to what's happening in the world of football on Overreaction Monday.
Dolphins, Final Four AFC team.
Oh, that is not an overreaction at all. I'm with you.
You're in.
I am in. The other three Final Four teams, if you were asking me to call my shot, this is the Overreaction Monday podcast.
Call your shot.
Entertainment purposes only, unless I'm right.
Yeah.
Chiefs, Dolphins, Bills, Ravens. Final Four.
Overreaction Monday, the podcast, wherever you listen.
You're listening to the All-American Book Club with Eden Gordon-Hill on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Thank you so much for joining the All-American Book Club here at WMAL 105.9 Washington, D.C. It's such an honor to be here with you every Sunday morning talking about some of my favorite books, but also meeting new authors for the first time and bringing new authors to WMAL that you may have not heard of before. I wanted to send out a note to my Twitter followers, or also X. I want to thank each and every one of you for your ongoing conversations with me about the book authors we've been bringing to the All-American Book Club. Also, I wanted to call out Don McCullen, who had talked about Stanley K. Ridgely's book, Brutal Minds, and how you really appreciated the topic of education and something that you were very passionate about in America's future. I would love to get a book copy to you. Thank you so much for engaging the All-American Book Club. And we appreciate your support and look forward to many more comments, suggestions, guest suggestions, and also just your words of wisdom for the All-American Book Club. So we thank you for that. On a final note, we did talk about Israel. What is ahead for our national security? What is ahead for 2024 presidential with Dr. Phares? But I wanted just to do a side note, something that has really been I've been really impressed upon by the fact that our country is so internally focused that we are more concerned about whether Travis Kelce is dating Taylor Swift. I don't know about you, but I am done hearing about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Do I like the Kelce family? I like the fact that they have this great family camaraderie between the Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City. But at the end of the day, we have more important things to focus and talk about. Our next generation of kids, our parental rights, education, our national military, our military spouses, and their underemployment that continues to face this nation, our veterans who have been forgotten about with healthcare, our economy, our open borders that are bringing mass murders, sex and human trafficking to our nation. And now we see Israel's 9/11 that we are reliving. And now we're sitting here saying, when is it going to happen to us? So enough of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift relationships. Let's focus on things that are more important. Oh, and by the way, persecuted Christians. Oh, and by the way, people of faith who care about their faith and who are being censored. Okay, the list continues on. So here at the All-American Book Club, we are going to focus on those topics. We're not going to talk about the pop culture of the day. And by the way, I don't care where Harry and Meghan were in New York since the last police chase, which is completely fake. My point in saying that is we have so much that we need to be talking about. And most importantly, are we looking out for our neighbors? Are we looking out for our family? Are we looking out for our friends? So as we head into the rest of October and November, we're going to be focusing a lot on veteran stories, veteran authors, our military, our spouses, and what is ahead for the next generation. As you can tell, those things that are very important to me and should be important to you. So for such a time as this, my little preaching session to you, have a blessed week. Let's pray for Israel. Let's pray for our nation. Let's pray for our community for such a time as this. Be strong, be courageous. Read the Psalms, read Luke. It will bring much comfort to you. God bless you all. Have a great week.
In 1995, veteran police officer Michael Chappell was convicted of armed robbery and murder and has spent the past 30 years in prison. The true crime podcast, In the Land of Lies, explores the untold side to this story, one that could prove Michael Chappell is actually innocent. See why people are calling In the Land of Lies incredible, phenomenal, and a must-hear podcast. Binge the entire series now, and new episodes are coming soon. Imperative Entertainment presents In the Land of Lies. Get the podcast wherever you listen.